What if what you've spent your life trying to hide is exactly what makes you unforgettable? From early on, you learned that there are parts of yourself that need to be tamed. Anger, desire, ego, ambition. You were taught that being a woman meant fitting in the tone of voice, fitting in the waist, fitting into others' expectations. And little by little, what was spontaneous became calculation, freedom became concession, and desire, a muffled whisper. But there comes a point in life when all of that gets exhausting. Perhaps you've already reached it, a point at which the performance of perfection no longer makes sense, when the fear of disappointing is smaller than the disgust of continuing to fade away. That's when the woman you are begins to break out of the cage. Paul Sartre said that man is condemned to be free. Condemned. Because freedom is not a prize, it's a burden. To be free means that no one can choose for you, that there is no prior essence that determines what you must be. You weren't born with a manual. Does that scare you or excite you? In this video, we're going to explore 8 traits that the world may have taught you to repress. Daring acts, desires, attitudes that sound dirty, wrong, dangerous, but which, when embraced with awareness, make you more than desirable. They make you alive. And the truth is, nothing is more irresistible than a woman who allows herself to be who she is, without apologizing for it. But attention, this isn't about pleasing. It's not about learning tricks to attract glances. It's about understanding why certain behaviors are judged as vices when they come from a woman, and how those same vices, when lived with authenticity, reveal a strength no man can ignore. After all, the insecurity you feel, this fear of being too much or too little, wasn't born with you. It was cultivated. And now, perhaps it's time to uproot it, to consciously choose which parts of you want to let bloom. Are you ready to stop being what they expect of you? Or better yet, who would you be if you weren't trying to be anyone? There's something curious about how desire works. What attracts us most strongly is rarely what's easy to understand. Mystery, the unexpected, the gesture that escapes the norm, all of that both paralyzes and seduces us. And that's where the so-called dirty vices come in. What is a dirty vice? We're not talking about real vices like self-destruction or compulsion. We're talking about those characteristics they taught you to hide. Being impulsive, talking too much, refusing orders, feeling pleasure without guilt, saying what you think, being vain, ambitious, intense. Traits that, when they emerge in a woman, are often labeled excess, arrogance, lack of class. But in essence, they are expressions of freedom. These dirty vices are like open windows in the social persona you perform every day. They let slip who you are when you're not trying to appear as someone else. That's why they cause discomfort, because they reveal, because they unmask, because they remind the other, especially the man, that there is no object here. There is a subject. Sartre spoke of the being for itself, that living consciousness, that project in motion, which cannot be fixed in any definition. When you embrace one of these vices, you're refusing the condition of object. You're saying, I am not what you expect. I am what I choose to be, here and now. And that freedom frightens, but it also excites. Psychologically, many men are conditioned to seek control, predictability. The woman who fits in, who doesn't question, who smiles even when she wants to scream. But something inside them, something they themselves don't understand, also leans toward the abyss, toward the woman who overflows, who sets limits, who doesn't depend, who takes pleasure in her own body and in her own thoughts. This conflict between the desire to control and the desire to surrender creates a powerful tension.
And you, woman, hold the key to that game. When you hide, the game dies. When you show yourself, the game begins. But here's the hard truth. Embracing these vices doesn't guarantee that you'll be loved. You might be feared, rejected, misinterpreted, because being authentic is dangerous. It breaks conventions. It threatens structures. It reveals what's false in relationships. So the question isn't, will others like me this way? The question is, can I sustain myself being who I am, even when it
bothers people? When you choose to live your dirty vices with awareness, You stop being a reflection and become a presence. It doesn't matter if you're at dinner, in trivial conversation, or in bed. Authenticity transforms any moment into power, and power is always erotic. Your dirty vices, when born of consciousness, are not weaknesses. They are the edges of your power. Perhaps now you begin to remember moments when you held yourself back, when you laughed softly, when you agreed out of habit, when you felt anger but smiled, when you wanted to be touched but feigned disinterest. How many times did you amputate parts of yourself just to fit in? And what if those pieces are exactly what makes you unforgettable? Every time you keep silent to avoid seeming inconvenient, something dies inside you. It may be imperceptible at first, a slight discomfort, a pang in the stomach, a silence heavier than it should be, but that small gesture repeats. One day, another day, and soon it becomes habit. You start living as if you were someone else. Sartre called this bad faith, a mechanism where we lie to ourselves. Instead of taking responsibility for our choices, we pretend we are merely the result of circumstances. I can't say what I think. They'll judge me. I can't act like that. It's not appropriate. I'm not that way. It's just how I was raised. But that's false. Because even when you stay silent, you are choosing to stay silent. Even when you fade away, you are choosing to fade away. Bad faith is disguise for freedom. It's the attempt to escape responsibility for being who you are, or for not being. And that denial has a cost. Over time, it creates an internal fracture. You start to feel estranged from yourself. You lose pleasure in simple things. Laughter sounds forced. Relationships seem repetitive. Nothing fills you. You look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself, but you also don't know where to begin finding yourself. The most dangerous consequence of bad faith isn't sadness. It's existential boredom. That feeling that life is passing you by, that you're living by delegation, following a script you never wrote. Nausea, as Sartre described in his work, is that deep queasiness before the consciousness that nothing makes sense, except what you dare to create. And here comes one of the sharpest pains of the mature woman, realizing she spent years trying to be the right woman for others, and in the process, may have forgotten who she was for herself. The vice you fought so hard to hide was, in fact, your spark, your singularity, your voice. But the good news is that voice doesn't disappear. It falls asleep, and any gesture of authenticity, no matter how small, can awaken it. Think of the times you said what you really wanted to say, the times you didn't apologize for feeling pleasure, the times you didn't give in. Weren't those the moments when you felt most alive? Yes. Embracing your most intense traits, your most impure desires may cause friction. It may bother people. But it also opens space for true encounter, with the other, and above all with yourself. Because only when you show yourself whole can you be truly loved. Until then, everything is illusion. And what's more cruel than being loved for a version of yourself you don't even respect? You can keep being pleasant, you can keep fitting in, but the price will be high. It will be your absence. Perhaps now is the time to turn the game around. In the next segment, we'll start revealing the 8 dirty vices, one by one, with their powers and dangers. And you'll understand why each of them, when lived with consciousness, can transform not only your desire, but your entire existence. She enters a room and no one can ignore her. It's not because she smiles more, nor because she tries to please. It's because she doesn't bow. Her presence says something even before she speaks. I am here, and I'm not for sale. That's the effect of a woman unafraid to be fierce. To be fierce, in this context, isn't to be aggressive or out of control. It's to refuse the emotional training that imposes on women a duty of sweetness. From a young age, girls are taught to soften. The phrase, "Wow, you're being so rude," is said to little girls more often than any other criticism. Little by little, being firm becomes a flaw, having an opinion, a threat, saying no, a sin. And that creates an artificial model of femininity, the contained, compliant woman who smiles even when she's burning inside. A woman who is never too much. But to be fierce is exactly that, to be too much. For those expecting a doll, for those wanting a harmless woman, What many men call a difficult woman is, in fact, a woman who respects herself, who doesn't negotiate principles, who, faced with emotional abuse or devaluation, raises her voice or walks away. Such a woman isn't understood by everyone, and doesn't need to be, because she's not seeking approval. She's seeking truth. Sartre said, "We are what we do with what was done to us." And a fierce woman is one who, even having been taught to be docile, chooses to be whole. Even having been punished for her intensity, chooses not to be silent. From the existential point of view, being fierce is an act of lucidity. It's acknowledging that the world is hostile at times, and that your anger has a reason, that it can be a compass, not an enemy. Anger shows where the limit is, shows what matters, shows what's being hurt, and contrary to what one might think, a fierce woman doesn't drive men away. She drives away the weak, the insecure, those who want to dominate, not dialogue. But she attracts with brutal force those who seek presence, because authentic, channeled anger has something sacred about it. It reveals that there is a soul there. In practice, this woman doesn't shout all the time, but she also doesn't stay silent when everything inside her wants to scream. She doesn't accept flimsy excuses, disappearances, emotional breadcrumbs. And, when they call her excessive, she responds with silence, but a silence that weighs, that confronts. Now imagine a simple scene, a dinner where she's interrupted 3 times. On the 4th, she stops, breathes, looks the other in the eye and says, "Do you really want to listen to me? Or would you rather talk to yourself?" It's not about aggression. It's about presence, about not letting your existence be erased. And here's the paradox. That fierceness, which scares so many, is also what magnetizes the most, because it shows courage, shows truth, shows that she is there, whole, and that if necessary, she will walk away without looking back. Can you sustain your anger without turning it into guilt? Or do you still apologize for existing with strength? There is an almost indecent power in a woman who says no, and simply stops there. No explanations, no detours, no attempt to soften the sharp edge of refusal. A clean, frontal, irrefusable no. But saying no, without justifying it, is, for many women, a near impossible challenge. Because from early on you learned you had to justify yourself. That saying no would be seen as coldness, rudeness, rejection. That to refuse, you needed to create an acceptable excuse. Sorry, I'm tired. Sorry, I have another commitment. Sorry, it's not a good time. But when you need an excuse to say no, you're saying something deeper, that your desire alone isn't enough. And that's false. Your will is enough. Sartre said that man is a project, a constant movement of becoming. No is an essential part of that movement. It's what defines what you refuse to be, live, or allow. Without no, you're just permeable, just moldable, a sponge for others' wills. To say no without explaining is to build a boundary, to assert presence, to declare with your whole body, "I am mine." And that, for a man used to invading territories, can be disconcerting. He doesn't know what to do when yes isn't automatic, when there's no opening, when you don't need to seem nice to be loved. In the traditional male psyche, the woman who says no without drama is an enigma, because she becomes inaccessible in the best sense, not by playing games, but because she doesn't need to prove anything. She's already decided. And this kind of woman cannot be possessed, only found, if she chooses. Think of a date. He makes a proposal. You don't like it. Instead of inventing excuses, you simply reply, "I don't want to," and remain silent. He'll try to understand. He'll ask why. You may even answer, if you want, but not out of obligation, because your no doesn't owe anyone anything. That's the turning point. When your no isn't a reaction, it's a choice. And here lies the dirty vice. Female refusal still bothers, because women were taught to be open doors. When she closes herself off on her own, the world trembles. But it's precisely in that tremor that respect is born. True desire. Not the kind that tries to conquer you, but the kind that wants to deserve you. To say no without justifying is an act of existential erotism, because it reveals that you are whole even when you refuse, that you suffice for yourself, that you don't need to empty yourself to fit anyone. Have you ever tried saying no and staying silent? Or do you still feel the need to apologize for not wanting? Talking about sex without hedging is still one of the most transgressive acts a woman can commit. Not because female desire is rare, but because it has been silenced, shaped, censored, for centuries. Women could be objects of desire, but never subjects. And when she dares to speak up, something shakes. Because she reveals that she's not there just to be desired. She's there to desire. A woman who speaks of sex without shame is not vulgar. She's free, and that is dangerous. From the beginning, you were taught to sensualize but not to feel, to tease but not to name, to insinuate but never declare. Your body was a field of expectations, and your speech a terrain of silence. But there comes a moment when all of that becomes unbearable, and you realize you can't keep living under someone else's gaze. That desire needs to stop being performance and become truth. That sex begins in the mouth, not in painted lips, but in words spoken without fear. Sartre spoke of being for others, that state in which you see yourself through others' eyes. When you speak of sex with freedom, you break that cycle. You stop being an image, you become a voice. And here's the point. Talking about sex without hedging isn't about scandalizing. It's about integrating. Recognizing that desire is part of your existential project, that you're not divided between reason and body. You're a whole, and your desire is language, choice, existence. Imagine now a scene, a couple on a first date. She doesn't wait for him to take the initiative. She looks him in the eyes and says what she feels. There's no vulgarity. There's clarity, a desire spoken, not disguised. And in that instant, she becomes something he may never have seen, someone who wants and knows how to say she wants. Many men aren't prepared for that, because they were taught to deal with female desire as mystery, not as presence. When a woman speaks, the fantasy breaks, and reality begins, a reality denser, more alive, more dangerous, because it demands reciprocity. A woman who speaks of sex without hedging isn't offering her body. She's claiming the right to be subject of pleasure, to choose, to say what she wants, what she doesn't want, what she will discover. She transforms the act into dialogue, and dialogue is power. But attention, this isn't a game. It's not a technique. It's a decision. The decision to no longer live sex as submission or waiting, but as part of your being for itself, as expression of who you are, not just of what you can provoke. Can you say what you desire without lowering your eyes? Or do you still feel you must disguise your own pleasure? Laughing out loud is dangerous. It's a sound that tears through the silence of restraint, that interrupts the forged harmony of the good girl, that disturbs. Because when a woman laughs out loud, she claims space, and space has always been contested. Female laughter, throughout history, was domesticated, allowed only in soft tones, at controlled moments, so long as it wasn't too much. A laughter that didn't reveal the teeth, that didn't draw attention, that didn't sound free. But free laughter is perhaps one of the most visceral forms of presence. When you laugh out loud, you affirm that you're there, that you felt, that you reacted, that you're not afraid to be seen nor to disturb, and that unsettles, especially for those who expect your existence to be moderate, contained, discreet. Sartre said that consciousness is that which surpasses, that transcends, and laughter is a form of transcendence. It breaks the predictable flow of things. It declares, I am not just this body you see. I am also this explosion, this sound, this laughter that breaks free. And laughing at yourself is even bolder, because it disarms, because it shows you're not clinging to an image of perfection, that you're not acting out an ideal, that you're human, imperfect, and yet worthy of pleasure, love, desire. A woman who laughs at herself isn't diminishing, she's liberating herself. Imagine now a scene. She spills wine on her own dress in the middle of dinner. Everyone stares. Silence. She could apologize, try to clean it, blush with shame. But she bursts out laughing, and says, "Good thing it wasn't the most expensive red." She takes control of the narrative, and in that instant, she becomes irresistible. Not because she's perfect, but because she's real. Male psychology often interprets female laughter as charm. But when that laughter is authentic, loud, unexpected, it's not charm. It's a challenge. It says, "I'm not here for your projection. I'm here whole. And if you want to keep up, you'll have to bear my freedom." Loud laughter needs no permission. And precisely for that reason, it's erotic. Because it reveals a woman who isn't asking for space. She's occupying it. Do you still laugh trying not to bother? Or have you already learned to laugh with your whole body? Being vain with taste, without guilt, without disguise, is still a revolutionary act. You learned that too much vanity is superficiality. That an intelligent woman doesn't care so much about appearance. That true beauty is natural, effortless, unintentional. And behind those phrases lies the old trick, the attempt to keep a woman disconnected from her aesthetic, emotional, and symbolic power. But vanity, when born of consciousness, is an extension of freedom. It's not about pleasing, it's about expressing, not about fitting an ideal, about creating your own. Sartre said that existence precedes essence. That means you're not born with a fixed destiny, a predefined nature. You make yourself, and making yourself includes choosing how to present to the world, the clothes you wear, the perfume you choose, the lipstick you apply. All of that is language. It all says, "I choose to be like this today." A woman with tasteful vanity doesn't dress to be looked at. She dresses to see herself. And seeing yourself is an act of immanence with transcendence. It's saying, "This is my body, my image, my gesture, and I am the author of it." But there's an abyss between conscious vanity and vanity for validation. Vanity for validation lives in others' gaze. It's anxious, needy, always seeking approval. Conscious vanity is silent, sovereign. It doesn't ask if it looks good. It decides that it does. Imagine now a woman getting ready alone at home, music playing. She tries on outfits, looks in the mirror, changes lipstick. No one's there, no audience. But there's a ritual, there's pleasure, there's presence. That isn't empty vanity, that is self-creation. And that kind of woman, when she enters a place, doesn't need to be noticed. She's already whole. Whoever notices, great. Whoever doesn't, it changes nothing. Because her relationship with her image isn't transactional, it's existential. And for many men, that is incomprehensible. Because they were taught to see female vanity as a seduction tool. When they encounter a woman who dresses for herself alone, without expecting applause, they don't know how to react. There's no gap for manipulation, no hunger to be filled. The woman who adorns herself with taste is saying, "I suffice for myself, and yet I choose to shine." Do you still ask if you look beautiful? Or have you already learned to be your own mirror's only measure? Few things are as frightening as a woman who changes her mind and doesn't feel guilty about it, because changing one's mind is, in traditional logic, a synonym for instability, for weakness, for incoherence. But that only makes sense if you believe value lies in staying the same, even when the world changes, even when you change. Sartre said that the human being is a project, and every project, by definition, is in movement. You're not a label, not a fixed state. You're flow, continuous construction, and changing your mind is part of that process. A woman who changes her mind, who rediscovers herself, who restarts, who contradicts herself, is alive. And that is a dirty vice, because it challenges the expectation of female constancy. They expect you to decide early who you'll be, kind, balanced, stable. 2. Choose a profession, a relationship, a lifestyle, and remain faithful to it forever. As if changing were a betrayal. As if changing were failure. But change is not betrayal. It's listening. It's realizing something no longer serves. That a thought no longer makes sense. That a path that once seemed right now feels narrow. And that continuing just for the sake of consistency would be lying. A woman who changes her mind is saying, "I'm not afraid of what comes next. I'm afraid of losing myself, where I no longer belong. This unsettles relationships, because many feel safe in a version of you that doesn't change. When you start to transform, they wonder, and now? Do I still have a place in this new world she's creating? And the honest answer often is, maybe not. Imagine now a scene. She's been in a relationship for years. Everything seems stable, but dead. She looks at herself and realizes she no longer fits that frame. She decides to leave. No drama, no shouting, just a lucid decision. This is not me anymore. To outsiders, she may seem cold, but in reality, she's ablaze. A flame that only ignites when the lie becomes too tiring. Changing your mind also means contradicting yourself, and there's beauty in that. The woman who yesterday wanted security, today wants risk. The one who sought stability, today wants exploration, and that doesn't make her less coherent. It makes her more honest. Do you still try to maintain coherence with someone who no longer exists? Or do you already allow yourself to be new, even to yourself? Being ambitious is still, for many women, a secret guilt, because the world teaches that wanting a lot is ugly, that desiring pleasure, power, or even peace, in big, intense, uncompromising doses, is a sign of selfishness, greed, deviation. The good woman is measured, contained, satisfied with little. The ambitious woman, she scares people. But why does she scare? Because she doesn't settle. Sartre said that man transcends himself, that is, goes beyond what he is, breaks limits, projects into the future. Ambition, in this sense, is existential impulse. It's the gesture of someone who knows herself to be incomplete, unfinished, and thus moves. Ambition is the opposite of resignation. It's the engine of freedom, and a free woman who wants more body, more space, more time, more pleasure, is a threat to social order, because she doesn't bow, she doesn't accommodate, she doesn't settle for what's offered if she knows she can have more. To be ambitious about pleasure is to say, I don't want lukewarm sex. I don't want just to touch and be touched. I want intensity, connection, presence. I want to discover, experience, command. That, to many, is unacceptable, because it breaks the image of the passive woman, the one who waits to be desired but never dares to desire strongly. To be ambitious about power is to say, I want to lead, I want to be heard, I want to decide. And here it's not just about career or status, it's about power over oneself, power of choice, of direction, of narrative. The woman who says this without asking permission challenges centuries of submission. And to be ambitious about peace may be the most scandalous of all, because it's to refuse emotional chaos, dependency, sacrifice. It's to say, I want peace, and I'm not willing to negotiate it, neither for love, nor for company, nor for tradition. And when a woman chooses her own peace instead of maintaining dead relationships, she becomes incomprehensible, because she was raised to give, not to preserve. Think of a woman who, at 45, decides she no longer wants to please, who no longer wants to feign pleasure, who no longer wants to smile to avoid conflict. She decides finally that her life will be grand, that her desires do not fit in small frames, and that, yes, she will bear the discomfort of being intense. That woman is not arrogant. She's lucid. Female ambition, when born of consciousness, doesn't oppress. It radiates. It doesn't crush. It expands. It paves the way for other women, inspires, reveals what is possible when you stop asking permission. Do you still measure your desires to avoid seeming excessive? Or have you already understood that excess is your true size? Expectation is a subtle prison. It disguises itself as goal, as identity. You feed it without noticing. You create images of who you should be. You make promises to yourself. And when you begin to step out of those images, something inside you resists, because it feels like betrayal of something, someone. But who? Ignoring expectations, including your own, is the most dangerous and liberating gesture of a mature woman, because you're no longer just breaking others' rules, you're breaking your own. Sartre said there is no essence prior to existence. That is, you're not something to be discovered, you're something to be invented, to be chosen, to be transformed. And if you invent yourself, You have to accept that your yesterday's version may no longer serve you today. The problem is, you clung to those versions. The strong woman, the woman who endures, the one who solves everything, the sensual, the maternal, the one who knows what she wants, the one who feels no fear. And each of those masks was useful at some point. They were survival strategies. But now, perhaps, they are bars. Ignoring expectations is to stop being a character. It's to wake up one day and say, I no longer need to be the one I imagined. And that frightens. Because it takes away the ground. Because it demands starting over. And the new is never comfortable. Imagine a woman who spent decades fighting for independence, built a career, earned respect, became a symbol of strength, but, little by little, realizes she wants something different, that she desires retreat, silence, time, that she no longer wants to prove anything. She could keep performing the unbeatable woman, but she chooses to stop, and in doing so, she shocks. What happened to her? They ask. As if giving up a version were failing, but perhaps it's merely evolving. The woman who ignores expectations is not irresponsible. She's faithful, faithful to what she feels, to who she is today, to who she doesn't even know she will be yet. And that magnetizes, because there's nothing more seductive than someone not trying to fit in, someone truly living, who contradicts herself, dissolves, reinvents, who looks at her own promises and, if needed, breaks them, without guilt. This woman doesn't cling even to her own image, and therefore, she is free. Are you still trying to be the woman you promised to be? Or do you already allow yourself to be the one just born within you? In the end, it's not about vices. It's about courage. The courage to be the woman you already are, but still hesitate to show. Fierce, clear, desirous, imperfect, vain, mutant, ambitious, unclassifiable. You've spent years trying to please, trying to adjust, explain yourself, prove yourself. But perhaps what most frightens the world, and excites it at the same time, is a woman who no longer wants approval, who no longer wants to fit in, because that woman isn't predictable. She isn't decipherable. She is living presence. She is choice in motion. Sartre said that we are freedom and nothing else. There are no excuses, no prior essence, only the now, and what you choose to do with it. Dirty vices, when lived with awareness, cease to be flaws. They become declarations. Each no you don't explain, each laugh that erupts, each desire you name, each route you change, each pleasure you claim, each expectation you abandon. All of that forms the body of your freedom. And yes, it scares. Because to be free means losing guarantees. It means answering for your own choices. It means facing the mirror and the world without disguises. But it's also what makes you unforgettable. Because there's nothing more seductive than someone who gives herself permission, who doesn't live to be chosen, but to choose, who doesn't wait to be desired, but desires herself, who doesn't ask permission to exist, and for that reason, overflows. Are you ready to give yourself permission? Ready to abandon the role? Ready to be a woman who doesn't apologize for feeling, wanting, changing, existing? Then choose, not tomorrow. Now, choose who you want to be today, and start living as if you already were. And if you'd like, share in the comments, which of these vices do you most fear and most desire to live? Perhaps that is your doorway.